a lot of material today. We'll just see what we can get through. I want to sort of try to satisfy everybody as much as possible, and we're all coming with different desires. So actually that brings me to the first point. I've been requested by my lawyers to point out that whatever we speak of today is not intended as a substitute for your regular medical practitioner. Just to make that perfectly clear, I am not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV. So basically, this is meant as essentially a game. This is, if you want to treat this in the way that it was actually brought out, it's kind of like a snakes and ladders game or something along those lines, and it will actually, I do find for me that when I actually play with this stuff, it actually does wake up circuits inside and actually helps to smooth out my general flow, but in no way does that substitute for regular medical practice. Okay, good. That said, so let's just go around the room, and I would love to know, basically what your names are, and
I just want to first say what I got from, I think it was last week, that I really liked. And that is, you mentioned that sometime in the future, you are going to fulfill the desire that you have now. You have eternity. So it could be, wherever in eternity you fix that problem, solve it, or whatever, claim that now, because you're going to be doing it eventually. And claim that now. And that, I've been working with that all week, and it's really fun and works for me. And so I guess I want to get things like that. And, well, whatever.
Okay. Good. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yes. Anything that you will eventually be at some point, you already are in the eternal. So if you wish, you can basically start to claim that now and sort of bypass the whole process of karma, space-time, and all those stories that are saying, oh, I can't have that until such and such a time.
My name's Renia.
I just want that's been happening to me this week too. I'm so glad you just said that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations. And your name is?
Drew. Oh, my name's Drew Berquist, and if there's anything that I want to get out of this class is to more and more illogically experience past, present, and future all right here and now. It's not something I can explain. That's why I just want to experience.
Awesome. Very good. The beauty of the simultaneity. Okay. Who else we got? Kurti G?
My name is Kurt, and I have no idea what I'm going to get out of this.
Excellent. What would you like if you could have anything at all?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll find out.
You'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Jerry.
My name is Jerry. What I want to get out of this, or anything, I want to feel good all the time, and I want to like whatever I feel.
Okay. It's a matter of will. Very good. So this too is God, this too is God, this too is God. Something like that?
Okay.
Okay. There's your mantra. Not a mantra, but there's your affirmation for whatever comes up. This too is God. Or this too is good.
Yeah.
God good. God is good.
All right.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you. Got you already?
Yeah.
Okay. Mary?
I'm Mary Meyer, and I'm interested in meeting people who are interested in deeper spiritual things.
Well, will you put up with us in the meantime? Very good, thank you. I think your desire is going to be met here. I hope so.
Oh, my name is Cindy, and last week I got a lot out of this session, and at this point I can't pinpoint anything in particular, but there was a big release of some emotion for me, some anger and stuff is what I'm dealing with, and there's a lot of that in my life right now, and anything that can help me cope with it better and accept myself better as a result of this rage coming up and figuring out where it comes from, and it comes from a lot of different things. It's not just one item, and a lot of it's pre-verbal programming from parents, and understanding how that affects my life and how to work with that.
Beautiful.
And dissolve it.
Nice.
So the things that you gave us last week was really helpful for that.
Good. I hope this
And-
week is also to this week.
And what happens, so what is going on for me this session is I just want to have more knowledge.
Good. And maybe smooth, yes, good. Not to put words in your mouth, but that is sort of the theme of this. We're in Tree Month right now. Tree Month is all about basically emotional movement, emotional flow, the astral body. So this is, yes, Hillary's theme song, we could say. Good. So resisting not is a real key there. That's good.
And I do resist, like the mule. I'm not going forward.
Okay, then don't resist the
you know.
resistance, then you're all safe.
Right, yeah. I'm slowly learning.
Because that too is love. Okay. Thank you.
My name is Bruce. I'm kind of with that unknown, unnamed guy who was on earlier. In the sense that everything I've experienced, not everything, but the wholeness that I've experienced is so beyond anything I can conceptualize or imagine or think
Yeah.
that I'm pretty much out of expectations.
Okay. Fresh out. Good. Good. It's a great way to
Wide
get
open.
I think Tommy's fond of saying anger is expectation. What is it again?
Obstructed?
Obstructed, essentially, yeah. Or
Minus reality,
expectation
minus-
is premeditated anger or something like that.
Exactly. Any expectation is premeditated anger.
Right.
Well, what's the equation?
Oh, that's for happiness?
Yeah.
The equation for happiness is happiness equals the the reality minus the expectation. And since the expectation always exceeds the reality, you got minus happiness.
That is beautiful. That is exactly the key for Brahman. Because basically, Brahman is this, the self is this, God is this, and whatever we're putting over it, saying that's not God, that is your expectation. You know, which comes back to the whole thing of whatever this is God. Must be. If not, you're making this more powerful than God, which is okay. You know.
What else is there?
Exactly. It's the only game in town. Yes. And you know, that's okay. We do play with duality. We do play with things that we think are not God. But I believe God is here to sutra, to stitch that into God's self also. And whatever that is, that too must be a mirror of the self, must be the pure essence of God, or else it doesn't exist, which of course it really doesn't. But that's okay. Good. All right. I'll set that. No expectation. Like it. Very nice. Good. We'll see if we can meet that expectation.
On the spot.
Carolee, and I guess it's integration and also like I've experienced annihilation, and so then also like over identification with like certain archetypes. Of like, no, I'm this and this and all this.
Yes.
And so then that's getting annihilated. So to know more about like what I am clinging on to identify with.
Yes. Oh, that's where the suffering lies, right there.
Yeah. But it's energetic too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not energy.
Oh yeah.
When it quits being who I think I am.
Yes. You free up all that bliss.
Yeah.
Right. That's nice.
And terror too.
Yeah. Horror evacuated.
I don't know, I guess some people around here call bliss terror or terror bliss, but I don't.
She's a purist.
I don't know, I mean, is that not true? Is that, because everyone uses bliss all the time, so then it seems like bliss is just the word for any emotion that could ever be going on in you.
Well, bliss for me is actually the actual what happens when you take an idea and you meet it with its opposite.
Yeah.
So they implode or they explode, and what's left is nothingness or everythingness, and that's bliss. You know, it actually can be a physical. It's basically Shiva going ha.
Again, that ha is that 33rd letter, which is, you know, that we mentioned in the first one how there are 33 Sanskrit letters going up to 33 layers of your different chakras. Ha is the one as you're just lifting off beyond the created universe, beyond the yoke of Brahman and into the uncreated. And it's equated to the 33 down is quantum foam, basically the actual white egg white of which everything is made. And so it's like you're actually moving beyond beyond creation per se. And that's the one just before that is Sa. So what you're getting is So Hang, as you're switching across that borderline. And I know that in other traditions they have So Hang as one of the actual chants or mantras for one of those given stages. And as we know, there are a bunch of stages beyond that. But the So Hang is actually the one that actually does release you from creation. And the other way around, as you're going back in, is Hansa, which is the swan. Paramahansa is the swan beyond. Paramahansa is the swan that's actually giving birth to that golden egg, which is the Hiranyagarbha, or the actual manifest creation. So one way it's Hansa, and the other way it's Soha. But it would be Saha, except that in Sanskrit, for whatever reason, they take the I and make it into an O before, an aspirate, like ha. So it's, instead of Saha, it's Soha. Anyway, good. Anybody else, who else wants to be on?
I've been experiencing, like, even for the 5 minutes I've been here, I've had all these things mentioned that I have been going through but haven't ever talked about with anybody. Your thing with, whenever you have some sort of stubborn idea in you or some sort of stubborn thing, and then suddenly the opposite comes flooding in, there's a rush and there's like, yeah, it is a high. And sometimes my roommates or my people who live next to me will be like, that guy must be crazy because he's laughing at late at night. But it's fascinating all the stuff you're saying, and I have a real I have a real interest in the divine form of God and how it relates to my own experience, because I know intuitively and from what Scripture says and what everybody else says that everything happening within me must be divine. It has to be divine. There can't be anything else but it being divine. But there's a lot of layers of sticky doubt and stuff like that must also be divine, but they need some remembering.
Yes, beautifully put. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I like hearing that it does happen for people. It keeps happening. It's already begun. It's already progressing. It's continuing very fast. And I like to hear other people talking about it. It's really great. So.
Nice. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Heidi Rom, and I'm pleased to be here again. It's the second time. And I'm here because I love listening to everyone and looking at all the drawings. And my life is kind of a mystery in the sense that I really love connecting all the dots. And so when I come here, it's like all the dots seem to coalesce and create all these beautiful visuals and experiences that make my life begin. I love it. Thank you.
You don't want to speak on the little flowers?
Oh, you want me to do that now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I had this remarkable healing the other day, and it was bringing the sunlight into the body or into the places that felt stuck. And all of a sudden, it started taking on a life of its own, and the sunlight started coming up through the bottom of my feet, and every single opening, like marma points, the sunlight just kept coming up, and every point that it passed, it was illuminated, and this beautiful flower came out. And I just watched all these flowers open up all over my body, and all up and through my neck, and all of the sides, and it came up to my eyes. There were flowers and illumination coming out of my eyes, and all the openings, and out of the ears, and at the end of the fingertips, and then into the organs, and I just sort of rose above it all, and I saw this whole being just glowing in all of these beautiful luminous flowers.
Maybe next time you have a good experience. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because basically, I don't know if we made it clear, last week we were speaking on the five, the nature of the five, which is the blue planter. He is the flower person, and that was the other half of the subtle body. And those are what his gift is, the flowers, the chakras. And what we'll be doing this week is the tree. That's the actual connecting between the different flowers. Essentially, the two of those ends. And the tree is basically this. Your spine, the Sushumna, the world tree is the trunk that goes straight from your feet up to your crown. And then there's this sort of double helix winding in between it, which is the other, the vines that essentially are Ida and Pingala, or your subtle currents. But the flowers are all along all of those points and everywhere in between. This is just a very, very crude sketch. Obviously, there's much, much more to it, and that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for telling me what I saw.
So that's the flower man. That's the gift of the blue planter, or one of them anyway, is understanding the subtle body. Beautiful. Sweet. Thank you. That's what it felt like to me anyway. I don't know if that's. Who's that?
I'm Dan, and I really want to get more clarity on kind of my experience with these different infinite structures. Just in terms of feeling them directly more clearly and more concretely as they progress. You know, I've been feeling lately kind of each of the archetypes integrating into my personality, and like kind of the cosmic personality becoming the same thing, and so it's nice because when you talk about these things, there's kind of a recognition of what I'm experiencing, and it helps make other kind of experiential connections, recognitions of what's going on. So I'm excited about that kind of solidifying.
Good. And that brings up another point from my side. I mean, obviously, the universe is far more than we can ever picture, far more than we can ever, schematize. But we can play with schemes, and it will wake up connections. It's just we don't want to take any one of them for absolute gospel. It's just that this is how it appears to us in this moment, perhaps. Good.
Yeah, because for me, it's pointing to something.
Yes.
It's not an idea. I mean, you use an idea as a placeholder, but
Yes.
it's
Well,
not
it's
an idea.
self-recognizing self.
It's an
Exactly.
experience of something.
Exactly.
I don't know, infinite.
Yes. Yeah, so we're using the mental to move beyond the mental. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Anybody else?
Oh yeah. How about immortality?
All right.
Well, you were talking last week, and this was the point that really hit me, and I think a couple people have talked about it, about immortality is about not getting stuck in your archetype stories. And I know right now for me, I'm like stuck in my archetype, and I'm playing the finite game, and I'm suffering, and it sucks, and I realize it. I'm aware of it, but I'm not awake out of it. So
Actually, you are. Just the fact that you're saying that.
well, that's a good sign, then, isn't it? So hopefully
Yes,
this will get better. Really.
You're already comparing it to what you're already seeing you're not that just by saying that. Do you see that? I mean, someone who's really stuck in there is not going to see that they're stuck in there. Who's the I that thinks it's stuck in there? You know what I'm saying? It's like I.
Well, that's a good
You
question.
know, you're already separate. If you're actually, you've already put those beings into cosmic consciousness. You could say those little entities inside of you. You know, just by virtue of you realizing that they're not you entirely.
Okay.
But yes, of course, we bind into them.
Yeah,
You know, that's how we create creation. But so it's just just sort of stepping back a little bit and realizing, who we are. We're not that as well as that. Obviously, because otherwise you would not. It would be so much in your, you'd be so identified with it, you wouldn't even know that you were identified with it. That's what identification is.
Yeah, over identifying it. Yeah.
So now you've done the hard part. So it's really now just a matter of.
Tom? Yeah, I was channeling Tom now. That's a new ability I've seemed to acquire.
Tom is in hot. So I mean, now, there are a lot of ways you can actually.
Now what?
To move it from being the witness, which is what you are right now, to actually moving that being into love is what I would call the next stage, and that's. One easy way to do that is with breath, which is what we, basically you want to connect the mind to the body. Feel where that is in the body. Where is it in the body? Where's the pain in the body? Where's the tension point in the body?
The pain body.
Yeah, just
pain
where
body. I am the pain body.
That too.
Yeah, that's the last step. That's the last frontier.
You'll find one
annihilation.
Yeah, there'll be one spot that would be like more, grabbing your attention at any given moment. That identifies with that particular suffering thought.
Yeah, it seems to be
and then you can
millisecond by millisecond.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah, so you just pay
happening.
attention
Okay, yeah.
and you breathe and you just give it love. You just give it attention.
It needs a lot of it
We
right
like
now.
to
I need like a perpetual self-hug going on all the time.
So I would say, so consider that done. It's just like.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
we know that we're nothing at all in a sense from the point of view. At least conceptually, we know that we're nothing, so that we can give these guys everything. We know that our thoughts are essentially meaningless to us on our level, but to them they take them for gospel. So you can basically, if it wants an eternal hug, you as being beyond space-time can say, so be it. I now give you an eternal hug. I'm outside of space-time, you're in it, you can now come into wholeness and eternity with me and actually, so you're actually acting as God for this little being. And so in turn, when you shrink down, you'll find that God, the big self, has done that for you. It's this again.
Oh.
What you're doing to the little point, the
Okay.
big you is doing to the little you. It's a constant attention flow. And so we call it unconditional love because we want to let go of the conditions on our attention. We don't want to say you're bad, you're uncomfortable, anything. Just if anything, just say you're good. That too is God. You are a quality of me. You're my own child. You're my own creation. Therefore, you must be made of my own divine substance. My own substance of nothingness, whatever, something like that. And let it breathe and let it enjoy it. Take care of it. All I really want is attention.
Well, we're in tree month now, and unbeknownst to me, but thanks to Hillary pointing it out last week, I was for some reason insistent on getting across the fiveness, which was the other half of the astral body. 5 and the 8 are the two astral bodies. We're speaking now in terms of the number of the planet out from the sun, so that on your chart, if you, how obvious is that? There's actually a zigzag pattern that goes from the sun to Mercury to Venus to the Earth point in the middle to Mars to the asteroids to Bacchus. Probably on the other, if you're looking at the one with the pictures, the other. Did you not get that one? Okay, here you go. Borrow this for a second. I'll need this one back. I'll make you a copy up later. That's kind of your table to what's going on there. Ignore the states of consciousness and all that stuff. That was just a model for those that believe that Brahman is somewhere where they're not yet. So that's not really the truth. Actually, that stratum is kind of what we've been taught, that those strata of consciousness that are on there from coma up to Brahman. But basically, again, if you remember that we are the whole body always simultaneously, and we just choose to put our attention at some point up and down, between heaven and earth, or heaven and hell, that's what we're pretending that we are, but truthfully we contain the whole thing. Okay, so eightness. This is so we were talking last week. We spoke a little bit about Maharshi's 5 principles of stability, adaptability, integration, purification, growth. That's the first 5 planets, basically. Stability being the sun, adaptability being Mercury, integration being Venus, purification being Mars, and then growth being Bacchus or the asteroids, what used to be called Jupiter. Before we realized that the asteroids was actually an actual planetary body of its own. And when we put that into place, that actually put all the other planets back into alignment in terms of octaves, which we'll go into at another time, but it's quite beautiful as far as models go. Again, these are just models, but they're better models than what I've been playing with up until now anyway, so I think they're fun. Let's see, where were we? Okay, so that's 5 is growth, and then 6 would be down to what we're now calling Jupiter in the base chakra, and that would be, we could call that responsibility, and then 7 would be your Saturn, which is, we could call that levity, or that which chips away everything that is not the diamond body, and then on up to 8, which is up in the astral body again, in the sex center, across from the 5. And again, we mentioned last week that the ones that are paired in the chakras, the ones that share a given chakra, always add to 13 when you add them up. And the 13 is this 1 and then 12, and that's kind of a clue that when you actually combine the male and female halves, you get back to the center, the divine center point in the middle of the two. In other words, that central spine point, which is the blending of the male and the female, actually is the combination of the two, and it's always essentially the absolute. It contains all possibilities for any given stratum, for any given chakra layer. So the 8 is this week, and the 8 is Uranus, and well, actually it's this whole month, because this is tree month. If you look at your charts, you'll see that we basically last month, in the base chakra last month, we were in metal month. That was right after the winter solstice. The Earth, essentially, we're moving up from the darkest planes for the northern hemisphere now, getting lighter and lighter, so that by summer solstice time, we'll essentially be up in the brightest portion, and we start moving down again, waning down the other side. To the darkest again. So we're coming up now from the darkest, deepest matter matrix of the mother, which was right at winter solstice point. And then immediately following that, we had essentially the awakening of, that was the Smith archetype overall, that whole month of metal month. That's the Holy Grail, is the way he sees the universe. Essentially, just in brief, each month has 4 high holidays, depending on the archetypes that are. All 12 archetypes go through each month. but the relationship of a given archetype to the archetype that rules that month will determine whether or not it's a high holiday. I'm getting rather technical now, and we'll get into this in more detail another time. Just want to give you the basics of essentially each month has 4 high holidays. Those 4 high holidays will always be, one of them will be that month's own archetype, and another one will be that month's opposite archetype, and then the other 2 will be another relationship, which is we could call the converse, sharing the chakra, or the inverse, flipping up and down across the midpoint. So the converse flips left and right, inverse flips up and down. Again, you don't need to get into this too much. We'll be dealing with this much more next month in Cosmic Mental Plane. But I just wanted to get across some basics here to show you that in this month, tree month, the primary archetype is the Magenta forester, or the carpenter. And this has been the symbolism for the entire Christian age, because we're in the age of Pisces now. I should tell you that this is not the standard Western astrology, nor is it Jyotish. This is actually Roarian astrology, which is based on an equinox point between Aries and Taurus, and this allows the sun and the moon to actually become your left and right eyes in terms of the divine body. And it took me a while to catch on to that, but when I did, it all suddenly fell into place.
So it's the 13 moons, 13 signs?
Mm,
Does it go into that at all?
This one, there are a possibility of 13, there are a possibility of 14, depending on if you count Ophiuchus and a few other ones. But the way we're still doing it now is still in terms of the 12. The other ones are kind of hidden in the middle. You could say that Earth and Pluto both as being the midpoints. Pluto is the underside of Earth, and those are in the solar plexus point, the midpoint, the middle Earth, we could say. Those actually can project out and create signs if and when desired. As of now, however, given the 12, we're just using them as guardians of the equinox points. And
Well, as far as the calendars, are we using a lunar calendar?
this one is a solar calendar. There is a lunar calendar that I will be going into much more again next month also. Space-time is all about the navel chakra. What we're in now is flow. So as we move into what we call Beast Month, which is the first month of spring in this system, that'll be starting, this was January 20th or so, started Tree Month. Around February 19th or so starts Beast Month, and then mid-spring equinox is right at March 21st and so on. So we're moving from base chakra to sex chakra to navel chakra to the solar plexus point to the heart chakra to the throat to the eye, and then back down again. Oh, and then and the crown at the midsummer solstice and so on, back around the wheel. So right now we're in the sex chakra, the female sex chakra we could say, which is all about communion. The archetypal aspect is the Magenta forestress. She has many, many names. Nephthys is one of the earliest ones. Nephthys was the Egyptian form. Nephthys, Nephthys. Nephthys. Mitra is another one in terms of the Adityas, because Mitra is friendship. Mitra, all the Adityas pair across the midline. I can go into that at another time. But Nephthys, Mitra, Nerthus in terms of the Germanic religion, Nerthus. Let's see, Njord is another form of that, Njord. Shoni is the goddess of the waters, or the god of the waters. Again, which sex it is irrelevant. You'll find this playing through both sexes. It's just that in terms of Western astrology, Pisces is female because it's a water sign. All the earth and water signs are female, and all the air and fire are male. But essentially, we actually have 12 of each of these, a whole 12 going through all these that are female, and a whole 12 that are going through these are male. But for now, for shorthand, I'm just going to stick with calling her the Magenta forestress. But she actually is Jesus also. Yahoo, basically, E-E-A-O-U. Or if you want to do it in terms of overtones, that's basically the sounds as we're going through the chakras, down and up. Yow, going from the front of the throat to the back of the throat, and then why from the back of the throat to the front of the throat. And there's a ha right across the middle if you want. So you can do yaho, why, and that gives you the YHWH of the Tetragrammaton. So basically, of the original name of God. Reason it can't be spoken, the name of God cannot be spoken, it's so holy, is because it can only be sung. Those overtones are the name of God, essentially. One form of the name of God. There's also an abbreviated form if you want to go straight through, which is Hugh or Wee. But if you're doing the full-fledged form, what you've got is you have essentially from the ha point to the ha point. If you want to do the father aspect of the spirit, it'll be Haya, and then the bottom part, or the female, will be Howa, which is basically Haya, Howa, and the Howa became Hawa, which became Eve, and the Haya is not particularly remembered now, but it's Aya. So those are sort of the two halves, but if you go this way, up and down, you're actually doing from the straight up to the straight down. You have the son descending from the father, Yahoo, and the daughter ascending from the mother, Wohei. So that in the early mystery schools, you had Yo and Vohe as being the two mantras, for the names of God. So you'll find that in different traditions, they'll remember. Yeah.
The Lakota say, oh yeah, why yeah.
There. Okay. Very good. Yeah. That's pretty much the whole thing. Iowa, by the way, is another name of God because you actually have the E, O, U, A. Yowa. So we are actually in the heartland, and by sacred solar plexus point, that is the sacred heart. This is not down here in the navel. The navel is here. The heart is here. The solar plexus point is your sacred heart. What you mean when you're saying, I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. It's actually another chakra, and it was so sacred that they left it out of a lot of texts. Basically, this is the anahata here, the unspoken, the unrung, but this one is the hrit chakra, the hrit chakra. And if you actually look in some of the very, very detailed books on Laya Yoga, the different yoga of the chakras, you will find many, many pages on the hrit chakra, midway between the heart and the navel. And that's where your inner ruler actually is. Hrit, H-R-I-T, or H-R-I-D if there's something else beyond it, like hridayam or whatever, but hrit just in terms of itself, basically cognate with heart. So let's see. So why Yehoshua, which is Jesus? Why is that the sacred? Why is that the forester? Because Yahoo is the downward stroke. So that's basically the aspect of the sun coming from the father down to the mother. That's the descending half. You could say the father is white, the mother is black. Then the daughter is black-white, moving from black to white, and the son is white-black, moving from, in terms of main ray and sub-ray, going from the white to the black, the sun. So that's Yahoo. And then Shua. Shu is one of the sounds, one of the cosmic sounds for that sex center. As in Gu and Kuf, the very back of the throat, those are the base chakras. So you have Gaia, Earth, Gev, Gabriel, Guriel, Guru, the heavy one, that's Jupiter, that's the base chakra. And then Kuv being the Saturn aspect, the Crone, Kali, Kalich, all these aspects are the base chakras. But for Shu, we have Ju as being the original Jupiter. It is taken over by the planet, but it actually is Ju. In fact, Jupiter means Jupiter, father Ju. That's the male sex center. Female is Shu or Chu. So we're coming up from the back to the palatal realm, palatal range. So Shu or Shua basically means salvation, the healing, the anointing, the communion, the baptizing. Again, we have, as we're going through from the foot chakra up to the crown, we're actually going through a number of different initiations if we're following our cosmic daughter or cosmic son. In terms of the ascent, we could say the conception was at the foot, and then the birth and the naming would be in the base chakra of the metals, and then the tree month would be the christening or the baptism, essentially baptism, and then the next one up would be transfiguration, and then that would be the fire sign here, being lit up with fire, and then this is the crossing, crucifixion. The crossing point. And then this up here is what happens after that. So you could say this is the dark night here in a way, and then moving up beyond that, we could say, mastery, etc. There's a bunch of different names for them. We don't really need to get into them, but different initiations. So right now, anyway, what we're in is baptism or communion, and that pertains to God consciousness. If you want to look at it in terms of this first one would be cosmic consciousness, being the metals and the, yes?
Sorry, keep going, but is then the forestress, is she a priestess?
She is, the priestess per se is a caste that is in the heart chakra. Okay. So she is we could call her the queen of heaven in a sense. She is actually Rhea or Hera, also are two of her archetypes, as across from Jupiter in the old sense of Jupiter being the other half. But she is essentially the presider over the forests and presider over the cosmic tree. So she is the presider over the astral, the cosmic astral. So that's why when you die to the cosmic physical, you are going into the cosmic astral. Her time period, again, this is midnight here. This is 0 to 12 to 2 a.m. and this is 2 to 4. That's the time that we usually die. 2 to 3 o'clock, 3 a.m. is the exact moment of the deep going through. That's it. So okay, that brings us to the next. So essentially what we're going to be seeing here in terms of, she's the primary archetype, and she kind of comes into her own in terms of the 12 subsections of the month. The month is divided into 12 so that each of the archetypes has a piece of it, and they're going in order. We always start the month with the one that is across the chakra from itself. So since she is the female sex center, we start with the male sex center going into her house, and so that is the blue. The blue one is the first 2.5 days, and she is the trees overall. The blue guy is the flower. So the blue guy is coming in. He's off for his quest, we could say. He's offering the flower of the magenta to these beings, and in return, he's getting back the tree of Jupiter, or the tree of Bacchus. So he's offering the wisteria, we could say, or the gilly flower, or the thistle, and in return, he's receiving oak or horse chestnut. So those are kind of, and then each of the 2.5 days is a sacred tree around that, and they then project out through the year, so that in any given month, there's going to be a 12th of it that belongs to the trees, and then a 12th that belongs to the beasts, etc. So even though we're lumping metal month here, and tree month here, and beast month here, because all 12 of the archetypes, all 12 of these guys are passing through this and experiencing it in their own ways, they're in a sense bringing the knowledge of metal month to all the other months as well, and vice versa. So it's a hologram. Okay, so that each piece is a fractal, each piece contains the whole. Even though this is only 1/12, it contains 12 inside of it, and so on. Hopefully we'll get the temple back up at some point to sort of show people how this actually plays out. It requires a bigger space than we've got right now, or more particular space, but we will get that up and going when the time is right, I have no doubt. There's a sacred tree calendar that is kind of hidden in this month and then is spread out through the entire year, because this month is kind of in microcosm what the entire year is doing as far as trees are concerned. And then there's also a metal calendar and a beast calendar, and that's the zodiac basically, and so on around the year. So the 4 basic archetypes for Yahushua, the sun, the descending aspect of God, we could say. Shua, who is the Savior, who is the salvation, who is the salve, who is the actual anointer, the anointed one, the Messiah, and the anointer. So these are all symbols of this 2,000-year period that is coming to a close now. The next one will be a very different period, essentially, that will have to do with the smith, the divine smith, and a lot of other aspects where sort of communion and forgiveness was the keynote for Pisces. As we're moving into Aquarius, the keynote will be much more the physical realm, understanding that the universe, that God is now in the physical realm, as opposed to the astral, which was that last one.
So Shua. Shua in the physical.
Well, Shua was still, Shua is still a shu sound, so that was still, Yahushua is for this particular archetype here that we're just moving out of, the Pisces age. This next one will be something like Yahugun, something along those lines, to really anchor it in, if you want to get fancy about it. Okay, so within this month, we could say there are 4 archetypes that will be really coming to the fore, and those are the ones that share the chakra. Itself first. We just spoke on that one. That's the magenta forestress herself, and some of the other names are Shawnee, Shawan, even John, in terms of the 12 disciples. Each of these is one of the 12 disciples in terms of the mystical Christianity and so on. There are so many. I mean, it's just where do you draw the line? It's just this is. I could go into that in more detail later, but let's just go quickly into the 4 primary ones. And the 4 will always make a rectangle. We're actually always dealing with the verticals and the horizontals related to the one of its own side. And because this is actually at the corner point, you could say, of a giant square, this one actually is what we call part of the mutable square in terms of the different signs. Pisces is mutable, Gemini is mutable, Virgo is mutable, and Sagittarius is mutable, and those are actually the 4 elements. All the 4 high holy archetypes will always contain all 4 elements also.
And so that basically this is the water element was Shu herself, and then the air element is the orange mage. So that's the one of the other archetypes. In fact, as the blue planter, who is this fire element here, is coming into this month, he gives birth, well, he sires, we should say, his opposite. And so that's the blue planter's opposite is the orange mage. Opposite to the sex center is the throat chakra. I can go into that in a little bit more detail later, but essentially, so the first high holiday, which actually was the first 2.5 days of the month, we saw the blue plant, that belonged to the blue planter. And then just going in order around from there. So we go from blue to blue-purple is the next 2.5 days, to purple is the next 2.5 days, which is roughly what we're in now. And then the next one is the red, magenta of herself. So that one is the one where she basically comes into her own. She discovers her tree, which is the ash, which just happens to be the world tree. And at that time, she is essentially given the throne of that world tree. She actually goes into rulership. So in that sense, you could say she's the queen of this astral realm. So she's the queen of heaven, we could say. Interestingly, okay. So then next after that, even though this is the blue planter's kind of day first, and then next week, these are 2.5 days apart. So this was the first of the month, and then a week later was is around January 29th, 30th, 31st. So that's basically the time of Bridget and Candlemas, because what's happening as she comes into her power, she gives birth to her opposite, and her opposite is Freya, or Miriam, or the Virgin, and that's the yellow-green enchantress, the innocent. And so at around January 29th to January 31st or so, we're actually seeing the birth of Brieti Freya. And then the week following that is the actual coming of age of the orange mage. He was born during this time over here. Now it's 14, 15 days later. We could say it's 14, 15 years later, because each day is a year in terms of the archetypal story. And so that's when the orange mage has his bar mitzvah, has his coming of age time, has his epiphany. So that's the epiphany of the orange mage. And then towards the end of the month, we actually have the epiphany of the yellow-green enchantress, or Freya, who was born 2 weeks earlier also. So that gives you a general idea for which archetypes are kind of playing out at this time. There's all kinds of interesting psychological currents, which we can go into if someone's interested. I would like at some point for us, if anybody's interested, to start actually acting some of these things out. Yeah?
Well, I haven't been doing it consciously, but these things you're saying concerning some of the experiences I've had, I wish to be humble, but it's just, it fits in the names that these things have been happening to me. I'm totally blown away.
Excellent.
Your system.
It's not really my system. That's the thing. I pretended I created it, and that's how I found it. I said, okay, now that I know nothing at all, let's create a universe. Basically. And well, what do we start with? Oh, well, let's first sneeze ourselves into lots of pieces. Oh, that's cool. And and then see how those connect in terms of geometric forms. And then, oh, look, now we have 3-ness and 4-ness and 5-ness and 6-ness and 7-ness, even though it's still just all me, or all just that, or all just divinity, whatever. Now we have a 6th divinity and a 7th divinity. So that's how the general each of these shapes becomes an angel, we could say, and then from there it just sort of unfolds, in kind of the more and more kind of spirals of Prakriti, we could say. Okay, so it would be fun at some point. I would like us to, if we're interested or up for it, we could actually begin to experience more consciously some of these flavors. They're essentially like the sutras. You would just essentially realize that the universe is your candy store. We know by being, or we know by opening to the healing thereof. So if we're up for it, we can do this. If not, we can move on to some more intellectual stuff.
Let's do this.
Okay. The other stuff will actually heal, subtle body material. It's not just intellectual, but let's do some obvious experiential stuff. Yeah.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
We're right now still in the metals. We're going.
Oh yeah. Let's say what is this? January 20. Where are we now?
4.
Yeah. Start with this one. 22 and a half, 25. 25 to 27 and a half, roughly. 27 and a half to 30th, roughly. We're actually it's actually 2.5 degrees precisely. So where are we again? 24th? Okay, so 20, 22 and a half, 22 and a half. We should be in stones at this point, because this is basically, it'll be 0 to 2.5 will be in this first one. 2.5 to 5 would be this next one. 5 to 7.5 would be this next one, and so on. Yes. Yeah. So we should be right here in stones.
Okay.
Yes, we should be.
In the subset of treatment.
Exactly, exactly. In the subset, we're in tree month. We're in tree month. This whole month is tree month. Thank you. Yes, we're in tree month, and then within tree month, which started with this subset, and we should now be in the second one, right in between those two,
So
roughly.
we're in like stones of tree.
Yes, yes, which essentially is garnet.
Oh, that's why it's birthstone for January.
You could say that. This month's birthstone is garnet. Yeah,
I mean,
because it's magenta.
like where
you
do
know.
they get those things?
Yeah, they try. They're not always exactly right,
Yeah,
but
no.
yeah. Okay, so and then so on from there. Okay, let's do an experiential thing then, if everybody's up for it. If not, just sit and enjoy. Yeah. Okay, so we'll do roughly a 5 or 6, 8 minute thing. Then we'll take a break, and then we can come back and do the nitty gritty, which is a lot of fun actually. We kind of get rid of the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Okay, so since this is tree month, we are the cosmic tree. Let's begin with this sort of the same exercise that we played. And again, if this doesn't appeal to you, do whatever you feel like. There's not, you don't have to just do what you love. If you don't know what else to do, let's try this. We'll start with the center of the body. Let's start with the middle earth point. And there's actually the Norse did a wonderful job with the cosmic tree, which kind of gets across we'll leave that aside for now. We'll move from the Sacred Heart. We'll just go right down through the body, drop down, drop down, drop down, drop down, right down through the feet, drop down right down to the center of the earth where there is actually a glowing sun, a sun of absolute love, absolute presence of divinity, even there. And so when you just kind of drop down a taproot, drop your roots right down there, right down to the center of the earth, and just feel them click on, kind of like click right together like a magnet almost, just kind of hooking onto that central sun down in the center of the earth. And then when you're comfortable, allow that energy to flow up through you. This is the love of the earth flowing up, nourishing you, healing you, bringing up, up, up. And as it comes up through the body, up to the center point, to your inner sacred heart, let that brighten out as a sun also, your inner sun. And then just keep on going. Let it flow up all the way up through you. Put your arms up high and your mind's eye at least as branches. And let the energy flow right up and out through your palms and out through the top of your head, right up through to the divine center of all, the paradise itself, which is the radiant center, at the center of all of creation. And then, when you're comfortable, either bring that energy back right down through the body and down into the earth, or out and around your body and down into the earth, whichever way, whichever flow feels comfortable to you. And if it feels comfortable going down through the body and into the earth, then as you get down to the bottom there, at the bottom of the earth, flow out and back up around you, and then back up to heaven, and then back down through your middle. And if the other feels comfortable as it's flowing down and out around you, let that flow down around you to the bottom of the earth, center of the earth, and then flow up through your middle. Whichever is comfortable. They're all happening simultaneously, whatever one you want. And when you feel comfortable with that, just breathe that for a few minutes, that you are now a perfect balance of the sun at the center of the earth, the sun at the center of you in Middle Earth, and the sun in the center of the heavens over your head. All three of these are one. The cosmic tree is now complete. And breathe, relax, and enjoy. Hariom. Now, up there in the center, either at the center of the sun at the center of the universe, or below your feet, whichever one feels comfortable, these are both cosmic meeting places for the archetypes. And so if you would, remembering that the universe is your divine candy store, you already are everything. It's just a matter now of choosing which thing you want to experience. Know by being. If you wish, you can say, I am Yahushua, I am Yoshua, I am the Magenta carpenter, I am the Magenta forestress, something like that. I open myself to the healing nature of Yehoshua, of the divine forester, of Shu, of Nephthys, whatever you want to call it. I open myself to the healing of the divine Magenta forester. I am the Magenta Divine Forester. And just sort of feel how that feels. Take a few breaths. I open myself to, and I am. And allow that energy to flow out easily through your inner sun to bless your entire creation. Through your inner sun to radiate out and bless your entire creation. That this may now be blessed with celestial consciousness, God consciousness. Good. Now, if you feel comfortable with that, we give thanks to Yehoshua, our Magenta archetype, Magenta Forestress. And let's play now with the opposite, with the converse. Let us open now to the blue planter. I open now to Osiris, or to there's so many names. Dionysus, the male aspect of Jesus, if you prefer. This is the flower lord, the flower being, the thunder lord, the thunder being, the electrical side. The other was the magnetic quality of creation. We open now to the electrical quality of the astral realm, the astral of the subtle body. So I am now the electrical aspect of the subtle body, or I open myself now to the healing of the electrical blue planter. And again, you can draw this either from above down into your sacred heart, or from below up into your sacred heart. Either way, let it radiate out to bless your entire creation. I now bless my entire creation with the creative inspiration of the blue planter, of the electrical blue planter. Indra is another name for him. Andrew, Saint Andrew is another name. Let's try taking a few breaths, breathe that completely, let the body completely enjoy that. And when you feel comfortable, let's move to the opposite. Let's move to the orange mage. And this one's known as Hermes, Varuna, Maya. This is the speaker of truth. This is the Pentecost. This is the energy that moves through the throat, and all knowledge is known through all language. This is the primordial speech. This is the chanting of the Vedas always going on in our bodies. This is the morning stars singing together in our bodies. This is the quality that informs our senses to make God consciousness. That primordial bliss of speech, that subtlest vibration of truth. So I open myself now to the healing nature, or the truth speaking of the orange mage, or I am the orange mage. And this is the Magus, with Simon Magus originally, but Hermes is good, Mercury is good, Varuna is good, many names. And again, as you're drawing this down or up into your sacred heart, allow then the energies to go out through your sacred heart to bless all of creation. All of creation is now blessed with truth, with the divine truth, with the bliss of speaking and feeling the truth. This is the poet, the inspiration of the poet. This is the cosmic speech, everything resonating perfectly together. Magic, pure magic in the highest sense, the high magic. As you speak it, so it is. Veramaya, truth speaking. Good. And we give thanks for that. And finally, let us open to the blessings or the presence of the yellow-green enchantress, or the singer. This is the other throat chakra, the female throat half. This is known as Miriam, the Virgin Mary, the Briati, Freya, many, many names. This is the, I now open to the healing nature, or the I am, the yellow-green enchantress, the yellow-green singer, or the chartreuse singer if you don't like yellow-green, the golden green, the green-gold enchantress. Feria, Freya, Maria. Again, we draw this energy down and up from the logos, from the pure divinity into our sacred heart, and then spread it out, breathe it out into all of creation. And this is the gift of optimism, the gift of the innocence, the gift of singing, the gift of lightheartedness. This is actually in the throat, but very lightheartedness. Good. So we now bless all of creation with that archetype of the yellow-green enchantress, the innocent. So we now have all four of this month's archetypes well balanced within us. The blue planter is known as the ruler in some traditions, the ruler. The magenta forestress is known as the victim, but she is much more than that. She's the communion. She's the sacred victim, we could say. And then the orange mage is the magician in terms of the archetypes, and then the yellow-green enchantress is known as the innocent. So we have a giant square where the blue planter and the orange magician are opposite, and then the other side of the chakra is the magenta forestress and the yellow-green enchantress are opposites. The victim and the innocent are opposites, and all of these resonate with each other all perfectly, not only across chakras, but up and down. They are octaves of each other. So that Mercury, the orange mage, is an octave of Uranus, 8 planets away, octave. And the asteroid belt is octave of Isis, which is the inner Oort cloud. Good. Thank you very much. Very, very good. As we have asked, and as we have been answered, so it is done. And we give thanks. And we easily come back to the self itself. For all of these archetypes are masks through which we play, are characters through which we identify to create stories. But the self itself is the center point, that inner tree, the radiant sun above the head, the radiant sun beneath the feet, and the radiant sun at our center. This is the self itself, the center point of all the dramas. The still center point. Good. And this is who we are. And from this point we bless and activate and energize all of the archetypes, all of creation, at all times, as we are creating our universe, consciously or unconsciously. Good. Breathe, relax, enjoy, easily be in the body. Thank you very much. When anybody's ready, if someone has an experience they'd like to share with one or another of these archetypes, anybody get any particular flavors from one another that was different from the others, or
I like that Oort cloud.
or what?
I like the Oort cloud.
The Oort cloud, yes. That's the inner Oort cloud, yes. The moon, who's the actually outermost veil of the solar system, I've been calling her that for decades, and I finally realized there actually is an outermost veil of the solar system in the physical, and it's the outer Oort cloud. The outer Oort cloud is a perfect imagery for the moon. I keep her of all the Akashic records. All those little particles are out there. Essentially, they're the source of all the asteroids that sort of come in and inseminate the Earth. Okay, so anybody have any? So you had what was your experience with that? You say you liked it.
Or just a residence.
A residence, very good. Yeah, good. She's memory also. That's we call her memory. She's the big, sort of the space where in the space for the throat chakra, memory is stored in the Akashic records and all that. The bigger memory contains even beyond that, which is the lunar aspect. But yeah, she's the first place that memory is really stored.
I really enjoyed that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I had clear experiences of all of them.
Excellent. So we'll start acting those out anytime now. Oh, so if people are interested, and if they feel drawn to one or another of these archetypes, they could bring like a robe or a towel or something of those given colors, and then we could maybe actually start playing that out, you know, at some point, because it'd be fun to actually play out some of these dramas as they're actually happening during the year, if people are up for that. And that's sort of what the mystery schools do, kind of to get you in tune with not on a really dramatic level what's going on your subtle levels. If you can see it outside, then you're less likely to be bound by it and think it's just your own stuff, you know, when it's actually happening on the inside.
The colors are interesting to me too, because I never really thought that much about them, but to me, when you said color, when my eyes were closed, I had clear images of certain people who are identifying really strongly with
Beautiful.
those
Yes.
and how
Good.
they like that color.
Yes, yes, very
It's
good.
really interesting.
It
I
is.
didn't think about it.
And we'll definitely find that we have dramas with people as we're identifying with one archetype.
Yeah.
We'll be projecting like hell across to the opposite and seeing them, whether they do or not, they will often be identifying with that archetype. But from our point of view, they're obviously identifying with the opposite. I've seen that. This is an interesting point. Again, I'm not a medical practitioner, but I have noticed that people, as they're identifying with a given archetype, will play out the dramas of that archetype. And they're doing this unconsciously, and each archetype has its own weak spot, which is also its strong spot. So that the male sex center is both your sacred spot and it's your wounded spot. Sacré, blessé, means both sacred and wounded, blessed and wounded. And so if you look in your bodies or whatever and you see which areas might be a little weak, that's probably one of the archetypes that wants to be paid attention to.
That actually, I had a really powerful experience about that too, because I have a wounded place that's totally corresponds exactly right, and when I go there, there's a lot more energy.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Because it's like condensed energy.
Yes, exactly. Wants to express. And we find that during the year, and this was really hard for me to get at first because I'm a very traditional kind of person in a way, and the idea of gods or archetypes dying did not really sit well with me, even though we do have the Jesus archetype and all that. I really didn't want to believe that was all that important. And my higher beings or my higher selves kept insisting, look, just learn this stuff and then you'll see. And they were right. I mean, since I have actually played this out and watch as these archetypes get born, conflict, achieve their goals, get married, have their opposite. They're always birthing their opposite at their own peak strength. At that moment, the seeds of their own destruction are sown. It's kind of like the yin-yang. At its peak strength, you'll actually find the opposite is a little dot being born right in the middle. And that then grows as they wane. So it's like your son or your daughter getting stronger as you get weaker until they finally slay you. And then you're getting born to them again, and then you slay them, and so on around the circle. And I just did this thing way too bloodthirsty to me. I just was not into this. But I have to say that as far as understanding our own physiology and what we go through in terms of disease, dis-ease, it has been brilliant. It has really been helping me understand much more clearly and get to the bottom of various conflicts that I've been watching, happen around me or in me.
And that's all the old pagan religions too. All had all of that.
They all did, and I didn't.
Sacrifice
And I didn't want anything to do with that.
All that stuff, and it was like now we, as in our society, look on that and we're like, oh.
Exactly, and by putting that aside, we are losing rich knowledge, because we're concretizing it too much. This is symbolic stuff, but I do find that if you have a wound in the sex center, you're identifying with the sex center unconsciously, you have a Hera complex, you're jealous of your mate, there'll be a la-di-da-di-da kind of person coming along who's the optimist and all that, and you'll think she's trying to steal your mate, and you will actually have sex issues, possibly dying from them, as the wounded one does die at the time of spring. Both the sex chakra ones die in May month, so that basically because let's see, the first. I don't want to get into that right now. But anyway, right, that's a whole other story. Right now we're having birthing going on. The dying doesn't actually start until after the equinox point. So this whole time is the dying off of the dark archetypes. Then they're getting reborn here as the year starts to wane. And then the light archetypes die off in this quarter from autumn to fall. And then the light archetypes get reborn during this quarter as we're waxing again into the light half of the year. So yeah.
I'd actually
right with you.
Kind of put together a thing of the way the archetypes tend to progress from from an issue to kind of resolving the issue. And I just sort of put together, and just when you gave us these charts and when we were talking about it and stuff, I put together, that's exactly mirrors the way these chakras come together for a stage of consciousness and stuff, the way actually you mapped it out. And how it is the opposites. It's
Yes.
actually the integration of the opposites
Yes.
that kind of propels you out of being stuck there.
Precisely, and brings you back to the center.
A clearer perception
Exactly.
of what's already there.
Yeah, the only clear place is the center.
We can talk about it.
Right,
That's
right.
really fascinating.
And that's that ha again of the, when you're actually reconciling two archetypes, you're dissolving both of them back into the, oh, that wasn't me. Oh, I'm here in the middle, and the whole thing's a wheel around me again. And yes.
The one that's associated with the Oort cloud, and is that Virgo as well?
Yes, the inner Oort cloud.
Because it's a containment thing.
Yes.
As well, yeah. I felt, well, we got to that one. I had an energy field during the entire time we were doing it around my body that I felt was always present. It was kind of like a shield or a block or a tingling, almost like half pain, half fatigue or something.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. And as we got to that one, I felt that suddenly not be an issue.
Nice.
Clear.
Very good. Paid attention to it.
And I was
All right.
flowing beyond it. And,
Very good.
You know, it felt
Yeah.
like the outer limits of the solar system for me
Yes.
had become
Yes.
sort of.
Beautiful. Yeah, all of this, we contain everything. We contain, we think that's way out there. It's not, it's in our consciousness. You know, we're not bound by light years. We're not bound by light. We're bound by thought, which is much faster than light. So yeah, the whole creation, this is just, we're just working the solar system here, but it does extend out to far, far beyond that as well. Far, 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 far beyond. Basically, the 10 to the 14th or so will take you, 10 with 14 zeros in terms of centimeters will take you out, to the heliosphere, which is the actually that's not quite far enough. Let's go maybe, well, we'll do that again. We'll go into that some other time. But anyway, yeah, as you're getting up into the throat chakra, you're actually moving beyond the solar system and into the galactic range, essentially.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Isn't this whole thing a 26? Is it a 26,000 year on the outer band?
Yeah.
That's what I.
Yeah. This 2,000 years or 2,160 years, in terms of the precession of the equinoxes, each age is 2,160 years long, and that's why Jesus said, you know, behold, I am with you always until the end of the age. Till the end of the age, some people just interpret that as forever, but it's not. The end of the age is very specifically the age of Pisces. You know, so.
For this galaxy.
Yeah, for this Earth, actually. I mean, basically.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, for this region, yeah, we're always Earth-centered. There's a reason we're on Earth. Actually, it's not all a bad thing. It's not all, you know. I mean, in terms of like, you know, being parochial or whatever. I mean, it's really not. There's a yeah.
So it's just the travel around the sun and the whole solar system around the sun.
Well, actually, it is as we go through the galaxy, you could say.
Well, that's what I
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's actually the wobble of the Earth as it's going, you know, going around. But, so, yes, time to break?
Time to break.
Good. A lot of this stuff is on video on the website also. There are short videos that are free. Oh yeah, all the written stuff there. RoryGoff.com, just go on there and just sort of plow through. I mean, much material is old.
3,000 pages.
Yeah, give or take. Yeah, just so whatever floats your boat, basically.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in the, you could just do a keyword for tree or something if you wanted to do tree month, and stuff will come up, you know, for that.
I read your website in like 2007, but I didn't get any of it.
We're done. We're
Want
starting.
to,
Okay. Dan, that is very interesting material, and I love how that is actually going to. Dan just basically showed us a sequence going through the archetypes in order that actually ties it in with the states of consciousness, as I've modeled it in terms of the chakras getting lit closer and closer to the center, and then back out again, going from CC to GC to unity to Brahman to post-Brahmanic unity, post-Brahmanic GC, post-Brahmanic CC. So I would like to look into that in more detail with you, and I just want to get that on film for right now anyway.
Because it's also the progression of going from something being an issue, something bothering you, to the absolute resolution of it.
Exactly. So this is a 12-step program. It'd be interesting to see how it ties in with the 12-step program. That would be, I bet it does.
Rory Anonymous.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this is the eightness today. This is 8. This in terms of consciousness. We're on the 8th planet, or the 8th progression out from the I am point of the sun, and that 8th point is Uranus. That's the 8th planet, And so we're talking now about dividing things up into eightness. The eightness is a cube, essentially, but it's not a cube that holds up very well. As you can see, it's essentially 8. The easiest way to conceive of an 8 is 4 points on top of 4 points, and that actually makes a cube. That unfortunately flattens very easily in terms of, it doesn't have what Buckminster Fuller called tensegrity. These structures actually do have tensegrity, but the magnets are a little weak, so they still don't really hold up necessarily all that well. But the easiest, one way to see a cube is like this. Essentially, what we have here, all the yellow lines are an octahedron. That's 8 faces, 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are your primary points for this double pyramid, essentially. So that's an octahedron. That octahedron, if you take each of its 8 faces and pop a little point out through it, you get the 8 points of a cube. Okay, these are popped out too far. If I actually had rods that were long enough to put them at the midpoint of each of these little tetrahedra are 4-sided figures. Each of these little faces, these blue ones, are all tetrahedra, blue with the purple bases. If those were only half as long, they would actually make perfect sides to a cube, perfect width, perfect length for a cube line to go right along there. So there'd be a cube intersecting this octahedron. And all of this is basically projections from the cube octahedron, or the vector equilibrium matrix. This is the one point in the middle with the 12 around it. So this is kind of like the I am and the 12 archetypes. This is kind of the core of the logoic crystal. This is what the logoic crystal would look like if it's not quite in perspective. This actually has 27 points, the 27 points of a logoic crystal. We went into this a little bit on the first talk. But basically, you can sort of see a triple cube here. If you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that being the top face, kind of like that right there. I'm showing that in a different perspective. There's your 9 across the top layer. Then the next layer down is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the middle point, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's the middle layer. That actually is flat, like that middle layer there. And then the bottom layer is, again, like the top one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And again, that's like the bottom layer over there, that showing it in perspective anyway. So that's kind of the best I can do with using rods all the same length to show the mechanics of the cosmic cube, or the logoic Pundarikaksha, as it's called, the logoic cell. This is one cell of the logos, essentially, 27 points arranged in a tripartite cube that also makes this shape as being its core, and what this shape was kind of the other half of that core. So this purple shape in the middle here is this cube octahedron, because it's called a cube octahedron or a vector equilibrium matrix because it contains, or is the core of, both the cube and the octahedron. So the cube, as we can see, the cube is a fundamental part of that logoic cube, but if it's not made in universal space with alternating octahedras and tetrahedras like these shapes, it's not going to hold up. So the 8 is kind of a vision of possibilities, but it doesn't have tensegrity, it doesn't have integrity yet. So it's a place where there's some frustration going on in terms of the psychology. This is it knows it has the truth, because the cube is the cube. It is the logoic cube. It has the truth, but it doesn't understand all the structures inside it yet. It doesn't understand how it can be a cube and have integrity, essentially, and be resonant with universal space. So it is the deep, essentially. The deep is its nature. It is deep space, essentially, but it's not universal space yet. So okay. So that's that. That's eightness. So if we take an 8, basically 8 is the one seeing itself as 8, and that can essentially be the cube, or it can be, if we want to flatten it out, it can be basically these spokes of the wheel. If the cube is this whole thing, we have a point here, 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 a point here. This essentially in turn flattens out into a wheel very easily. If you look at this, so that the green triangle and the red triangle are opposite each other exactly, so they make a Star of David, you'll actually see the blue lines. I don't know if I've got that. Let me just line that up like so. The blue lines will actually zigzag around to create oscillations around the wheel in the exact order of the blue points of all these magnet points in the zodiac. This actually is a flattening of this. This zodiac is just a flattening into 2 dimensions of the cube octahedron or the vector equilibrium matrix. And within that, we can find the cube, and the cube here, we can find the 8, and the 8 are these 8 I Ching trigrams, essentially, and which is just basically binary for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's an older system, or system that was around before I consciously came on the planet, called, invented by Fu Shi, and he did the whole thing from heaven down to earth. Everybody's in agreement that these are the actual names for the trigrams, but how they're arranged, people have come up with different systems. Fu Shi decided that heaven the energies moved from heaven to earth. In other words, he's using the Apana flow that we were talking about last time. And so he decided that heaven, the 3 unbroken lines would be 0. And then from there, a broken line would be 1, and he started from the top, because he's starting from the top in terms of the wholeness. So in the microcosm also, this is the 1s column, the 2s column, and the 4s column in terms of binary. So we have a broken line at the top for 1, a broken line in the middle for 2, because this is the no 1s, 1, 2, no 4s. And then a broken line, 2 broken lines for the 3, 1, 1, 1, 2, no 4s. And then so on down. Is that pretty clear? Okay, I'm not doing that system. Basically, what he did is he arranged that system like this, and it's very beautiful in a lot of ways. He goes 0, 1, 2, 3, crossing to 4, 5, 6, 7, then back to 0 again. So that basically he's got a kind of a figure 8 going. Looks like this. It is the actual, you could say it's the kind of the yin-yang. But the problem is it doesn't really tie in too much with anything else in terms of like the wheel of the seasons or anything that I've been able to find anyway. So I was not really happy with that. And I just sort of opened up, and another way popped into my mind, which was try it as an ascension process rather than a descent process, because we're actually in ascent right now. So the 8ness would be an ascension process. And so if we start with Earth, which again in both, it's broken lines, but we consider these broken lines to be 0, gaps, voids, and then move to a solid line. And again, since we're starting from the bottom now, we would actually start with this being the 1s column, and then the next one being the 2s, and the next being the 4s, instead of the other way around. So if we, so that gives us Earth, thunder, deep, lake, mountain, summer, wind, and heaven. And I tried mapping that actually onto this wheel in using a zigzag pattern, very much like the Kabbalah, going up through the chakras, and it works perfectly. So I like it. Anyway, you're welcome to either take it or not as you wish, but let me show you why I like it anyway. Earth is the first one, and that's in midwinter solstice in our base chakra with the metals and the stones. Earth. That is the actual element of Earth in terms of our chakras. Good. That works so far. Like it. Next, we got thunder. Thunder is at the mid point of flower month, which is Hallows month, which is basically Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the archer, or the hurler of thunderbolts. The arrowheads are known as thunderbolts. He is the thunder god. Jupiter was his original ruler of that, and Bacchus and Dionysus are still the ruler of that as thunder gods. The thundering, the electrical energy of male sexuality that would come in as a lightning bolt to inseminate the plane, the earth. So that works. In fact, that's the only place that thunder could really go. The next one is deep, and that goes right across to Pisces, to tree month, to Uranus and Pisces. Oceanic. Pisces is the fish in the ocean. Perfect, no problem there. Lake is basically, these are essentially are kind of relating more to while they're actually at the midpoint, they're introducing what comes next. And lake actually introduces Scorpio, which is a water sign. And it's basically the quality of birds on the lake, essentially, is that whole thing. Lady of the Lake would be the turquoise fowler. She's the empress in the Tarot. And the mountain relates to the Taurus, the earth aspect. Although it's actually got fire under the mountain, could also be a volcanic quality. In fact, lake could actually be air on top of water, because you've got the air on top of the water there. The lake actually could relate that. But mountain essentially is fire moving into earth. So it could either be volcano or it could just be earth. In this case, it definitely relates to the breasts, since it's actually from the equinox point of the solar plexus up to the heart. So we'll go up to summer. Nice. Actually, summer actually works out as being between July 22nd and August 21st or so. It's not actually summer in my calendar because this is for early summer and late summer. We call this harvest month. It's a cross quarter, but it's certainly the hottest time of the year, and it's called summer in most cultures. So sounds good so far. Good enough anyway. Best place for it that we can find. 6 is wind. Now this is in the throat chakra. We're moving from the yellow-green to the orange mage. Throat chakra is the magician. Gemini, wind. Gemini, speech. We're actually talking about giving forth the atmic, the spirit of wind. Works, couldn't be a better place for it. And then finally, heaven gets up into beyond the 2 eyes, up to the crown chakra, summer solstice. So that system worked about the best of any I've found. I was very pleased with it. And the paper that I passed around, this one, I had actually drawn this years and years and years ago. I do not remember how many years ago now. And it wasn't until I actually worked this whole thing out and decided and realized that there was a system of 8 circuits. They basically have a circuit of earth, a circuit of thunder, a circuit of the deep, a circuit of the lake, a circuit of mountain, summer, wind, and heaven. Gives you 8 circuits. And I actually had drawn these right in this pattern here without even connecting it to I Ching, because I hadn't done the work on the I Ching when I had actually drawn this picture. So this first circuit is, we could call the earth circuit, and then the next circuit, so that's from essentially your root chakra up through your left and right feet or your knees up to your base chakra. And then the next circuit is the thunder circuit, and that goes from your base, which is just below your butt, you could say, up to your sex chakra, which is about at your right about there at your pelvic bone, and that's centered on essentially the perineum, more or less. And then the third circuit is the deep, and that's between the sex chakra and the navel, so that's centered on your dantian place, or the hara. And then the next circuit is the, what we got next after deep? Lake, right. Lake comes from the navel to the solar plexus point. Right, so that's right, midway between the navel and the solar plexus would be the anchoring of that point. Right about, here's your navel, here's your solar plexus point, so the deep would be, lake would be right there. And then the next one is between the solar plexus point and the heart point, and that's the mountains. And the heart is here roughly, so the mountains are basically your 2 breasts. And that really goes very well with and that's been the case through mythology, mythological landscapes forever. They've always called a couple of mountains the paps of Anu, or the breasts of Anu. And Anu actually is one of the names for this red-orange high priestess here, who would be the left breast. Okay, and then so the next one after that is summer. This is the basically from the heart to the mouth. And the center of that is at the pit of the throat, and we spoke about that before in terms of the prana, actually bringing in prana. This is the harvest point. This is harvest month, the summer. So prana is when you're actually harvesting, you're actually eating the stuff that you've grown. This is why attention on this point, at the tube in the pit of the throat, brings cessation of hunger and thirst. You're actually becoming aware that you're bringing in everything all the time. You're actually breathing in all these, we mentioned this last time in more depth about how the 5 pranas, they all intersect with these 8 circuits or the 9 chakras, and each one has several gifts, different cities that are associated with it, including celestial different senses, because it's all about, this whole body is the sensory body. It's the indriyas body, the body of the astral body, which is all about linking physical to the mind. That's done by way of the indriyas, which is why Indra, the blue planter, is called Indriya. Okay, so but that's all the 5 essence. This is the 8 essence here. So that's summer, and then from the throat to the brow is the wind, and that's focused right centered on this spot, the bridge of the nose, right there, and that's kind of the place that I believe you're actually supposed to meditate on when you meditate on the tip of your nose. I think they're actually mostly talking about this tip, not that tip. Could be mistaken, but anyway, that's obvious. The fact that that's wind is pretty obvious. That's where the breath comes through. Speech, all that. Basically, that's conjoining between kind of the seeing and then the speaking it out is through the wind. And then heaven, pretty self-evident. Essentially, heaven is centered from the brow up to the crown, and it's centered on the point at the top of the head, the sort of little Buddha knot, but it actually goes up beyond that. Okay, so any questions so far? Yes?
I noticed that for Earth and Heaven, they're located between zodiac signs.
Yes.
For example, Capricorn and Aquarius,
right.
And Cancer. And
yes, this is actually the directions of the actual cardinal directions, we could say. So that's due north. due south, and that's right in between signs. You're absolutely right. And these also, east-west, are right in between the two equinox signs. Yeah, so those are the cardinal points themselves, and the other ones, the southeast is right smack in the middle of Gemini, and then the southwest is smack in the middle of these are the cross quarters, these ones that are making an X through the wheel. So, so those are all smack in the middle of those signs, those cross ones. But yeah, together they make the 8. Anything else? Was that good so far?
Can we copy that for Cindy?
Copy.
That, because I'm trying to draw it and it's just.
Yeah, you would not believe how long it took me to draw this out this morning. Yeah, that would be good. We take a picture. Yes, it'll be on the video. I hope. Okay. Now, if you would like, we can start to actually trace these through in terms of like a meditation. I can, because it turns out that these 8, these are the 8 circuits inside on this chart. If you look at inside each of these circles, there are basically 8 elements. There's from the center point, there's 4 crosses, and then there's 4 linkages between these different chakras. Oh, and by the way, I should mention also, the 8 by 8 gives you the full 64 of the I Ching hexagrams, and there's very interesting research being done that ties those in with the codons of the DNA. We've already mentioned that these sort of circuitries going through the double helix. These are essentially like the bases on the double helixes that are always paired with each other. These are the ones that are going across from left to right, the male-female aspects of the different chakras. And it looks as if it won't be too long before we're actually finding which of these hexagrams actually go with which. There are certain models that are already on the web. I'm not absolutely sure they're absolutely right, but they're getting there. So, this is basically all about growth. This is the whole growth astral body, the pattern to the physical body. The information being stored here gives rise to the physical body. Okay, so these are essentially 8 circuits within each wheel, and then there are 8 wheels, or so we could say 8 trigger points within each of these wheels, which is a circuit, and then 8 circuits that connect all your 9 chakras together. Okay, so you could actually just go through and you could even say that each of these is an initiation if you wanted to, that basically this could be like, you could call this conception, the birth, baptism, transfiguration, crucifixion, mastery, decision, and transition, and then around again to conception. And that would be kind of an unfolding of various initiations through each of your 8 different realms, the physical, the astral, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I found it quite interesting to just kind of go through each of these circuits, in each of these sub-circuits in each of these 8 circuits, and just kind of pay attention to each one in order. And it was, that's on my website if you feel like going into that under I Ching and the subtle anatomy, I think. And so it's a fun exercise to go through. If you actually just consciously pay attention to, in terms of one of these, it would be like the first 0 is the earth here, and then the next one, earth to thunder, would be basically, so you're basically going from here down to earth, and then to this one, right? And then to deep is over here, and then lake is here, and then mountain is here, and then summer is here, and wind is here, and then heaven is here, which ties in with earth to the next one. So you're just like, it's one way to easily go through basically all of them. And as I found that as I did that, it was, I felt surprisingly well lubricated, I would say, after I actually tried that, just going through all 64 of the circuits. So I definitely recommend that, if somebody feels inclined to do that, it's amazing where you can find, on the site there it actually talks about how, the earth circuit is between your foot and your left, so you would visualize basically the energy going from, the midpoint of the earth circuit. You could say that would be either between your feet. I kind of like the idea that it's actually between the knees, and that you actually have the circuit kind of going this way. So you can actually pay attention to, instead of the left foot, the right foot, it could actually be the left knee, the right knee, but if you prefer it, you can push it down further so that it's actually the left feet and right feet, and your anchoring point is down deeper. Really doesn't matter too much, I don't think. It's all the self, just wherever you want to allot the pieces of the game board, and just basically take it on up through. It's a lot of fun. If you would like to try that, if you have any other questions, we could go into that. Otherwise, we could sort of just kind of go through the circuitry one by one, if you like it. Okay. Always fun to close our eyes. Okay. So I would say just essentially Oh, and I mean, if you don't have to do it this way, but I found this way to be very, to actually be sitting this way can be very useful because it actually is a nice way to activate the hand chakras. We don't normally pay much attention to the hand chakras, but if you actually have those directly up above the head like this, kind of, they serve as this kind of a scooping energy to kind of bring in that crown chakra, and that kind of completes that circuit there, you know, if you feel like it. You can wait till you get to that point or just to visualize it either way. And okay, so if we started with the, start with the earth circuit, and that ties in our root chakra to our base chakra. So we would start with the energy moving from the center of that earth circuit, which we could either visualize as being between our knees or being between our feet, depending on how far down we want to extend it. We visualize the energy going first from that place down to the actual root itself, which we could say is the center of the earth. Why not? Good, very good. Yeah, let's actually extend it. Let's go all the way. Let's put the actual center of this chakra between our feet, and then the center of the actual far bottom end will actually root that down into that glowing center of the earth itself. I like that. That works for me anyway. But if you don't like it, you know, do what you want. Okay, so send the energy from the middle of the earth circuit down between the feet, down to the center of the earth itself. That's the first circuit. That is earth over earth in terms of the trigrams. Feel that nicely. Next we'll move to, and just again, just know this is happening. You don't have to really try hard, just know that it's there, just like a sutra. Next, earth to thunder, earth over thunder. Within the earth circuit, we're now bringing our attention up from the earth, center of the earth, up to our right foot. Up to our right foot, up to our right knee, if you want, either or both of those. All right, next we're going to go from the center of the earth up to our left foot and our left knee. That's good. I like that. That's nice. Next we're going to go from the center between our feet to the right foot, right knee. And next from the center of the earth circuit, which is either between our feet, between our knees, to our left foot and our left knee. And next from the right foot and right knee up to the base chakra. And this is actually a chakra that's just below our physical body, or right at the bottom end of our physical body, we could say. And that's earth over summer. And then earth over wind. We're going to bring the energy from the center over to the up from our left foot, left knee, up to our base chakra. Good. Left foot, left knee up to our base, and now right up the middle to the actual from that place between our feet and between our knees, right up to our base chakra. That's earth over heaven. Very good. All right. Are we good so far? Everybody happy? Okay. Let's go to the second circuit, thunder circuit. And this is between the base chakra and the sex chakra. And again, the sex now is on the top of the pelvic bone in the middle. So we're going from and in the center of this will be about in the perineum. It's kind of, I guess we all know where the perineum is. So, okay, so the first circuit, the earth circuit of thunder, is going from the perineum down to the base chakra, down to just below that. And again, don't worry too much about the anatomy, just know that it's happening. Good. Okay, next one, thunder to thunder, going from that base chakra up to the right buttock. Good. Next, the deep, coming from that base chakra up to the left buttock. Next, lake, coming from the perineum, the centermost aspect of the thunder circuit, over to the right buttock. And then from the mountain, from the perineum, over to the left buttock. Ah, good, thank you. And now from the right buttock up to the sex center. This is summer. And now from the buttock left buttock up to the sex center, wind. And from the perineum up to the sex center, heaven. And breathe. Allow that to flow. Next, the deep circuit, coming up one. This is between the sex center at the top of the pelvis and the navel. And so the actual center is 3 or 4 finger widths below the navel at the dantian. And so our first movement is from the dantian, that center point, down to the sex center. That's earth, the earth of the deep. Now we're moving up from that sex point up to our right. We call this the right sex chakra. It's basically where an ovary would be if you have an ovary. Kind of almost at the top edge of the pelvic bone on the right side. And so those of you that have ovaries, you're lucky. Okay, so then let's see, so that's thunder. Next is the deep. So we're moving now from the pelvic bone up to the left hip or the left ovary area. And breathe. Good. Now we're moving from the dantian point, the center, over to that right ovary area, right hip. This is the lake. Deep over lake. Beautiful. And now deep over mountain, going from that dantian point in the middle there under the navel to the left ovary area, left hip area. Now we're going to go up to summer, and that's moving from the right ovary area up to the navel, And then from the wind, this is from the left ovary area up to the navel. And finally, breathe, on from the dantian area up to the navel. That's heaven, heaven of the deep. Okay, thank you, good. Now up to lake area, from the navel up to the midpoint between the navel and the solar plexus, so about 4 inches above the navel. So let's start with the center from 4 inches above the navel, go down to the navel, that's earth. Ha, good. Now, thunder, coming from the navel up to the right navel area, which is the liver area, just under the right rib cage. So from the navel up to the liver. That's the lake. Now, again, from the navel up to the spleen. This is on the left side, under the rib cage. Left navel. That's a mountain. Next, from the liver up to the solar plexus point. That's summer. And breathe. And then from the spleen up to the solar plexus point. And that's wind. And finally, from the area above the navel to the solar plexus point. That's heaven. That brings us to the midpoint. That's good. And breathe. Now, onto mountain. This spans the mountain circuit is from the solar plexus point up to the heart, and the 2 side points are the left breast and the right breast, and the midpoint is right between the two, between the left breast and the right breast, between the solar plexus and the heart chakra. Okay, so the first, earth, we're going from the in between the left and right breasts down to the solar plexus point. Thunder, from solar plexus point up to the right breast. The deep, from solar plexus point up to the left breast. Lake, from the midpoint straight over to the right breast. Mountain, from the midpoint straight over to the left breast. And breathe. Relax and enjoy. Yeah, good. And summer, from the right breast up to the heart. And wind, from left breast up to the heart. And heaven, from the midpoint between the breasts up to the heart. And breathe. Another circuit. Now the summer circuit. This is between the heart and the mouth. And the center point is at the pit of the throat. The two side points are on the left shoulder and the right shoulder. These are your angel wing points, you could say. So, earth, first from the pit of the throat, down to the heart. Thunder, from the heart, up to the right shoulder. Deep, from the heart, up to the left shoulder. Lake, from the pit of the throat to the right shoulder, straight across. Mountain, from the pit of the throat to the left shoulder, straight across, and breathe. And summer, from the right shoulder up to the mouth. And wind, from the left shoulder up to the mouth. And heaven, from the pit of the throat to the mouth, straight up. Okay, now the wind circuit. This is from the mouth up to the third eye. And the third eye is up in the middle of your forehead, you could say. And the two side points are the left and right eyes, and the midpoint of the whole thing is in the bridge of the nose, right between the eyes. So the earth circuit of wind over earth, from the nose bridge down to the mouth. Thunder, from the mouth to the right eye. The deep, from the mouth to the left eye. Lake, from the bridge of the nose straight over to the right eye. Mountain, from the bridge of the nose straight over to the left eye. And breathe. Good. Good. All right. And summer, from the right eye up to the third eye. And wind, from the left eye up to the third eye in the forehead. And heaven, from the bridge of the nose straight up to the third eye. And last, the heaven circuit. Now this one, if you want to put your hands up or just visualize that you have centers on either side above your head, above the top point of your head, which is the center of the heaven point. The bottom point is the third eye in the middle of the forehead. And the top point is the crown chakra floating over the head. Okay, so heaven, the earth of heaven, from the top of the point, top of your head, down to your third eye. And thunder, from the third eye up to your right hand. Ha! Adyam. And deep, from the third eye up to the left hand. And the lake, up from the center point on the top of your head, straight over to your right hand. And a mountain, from the center point on the top of your head, straight over to the left hand. And summer, from the right hand up to the crown. Wind, from the left hand up to the crown. And heaven, from the top of the head up to the crown. And then the whole circuit begins again. Take a few breaths, enjoy that. You are the entirety.
This all intertwines beautifully with the 5 pranas. If you have that sort of mind that really likes making complex charts, it would not work on this blackboard, I don't think, but it can be a lot of fun if you take last week's stuff and superimpose it on this week. So you are now a complete cosmic tree. You have paid attention to every circuit. You might want to be aware also that when you're pointing to the center points, those go through front to back. So you're going alternatingly from left to right, to front to back, to left to right, to front to back. I didn't want to complicate things too much, but you can now know that what you're actually doing is you're actually paying attention to stacked tetrahedra in your body. Like a rod going across this way, and then a rod going up 90 degrees up, and then they also,
It does kind of add to it to put your attention on it.
It does.
Because normally it feels like toroids, but This is another way.
It is another way. I normally play with Tauruses, and this was just going through this one by one. It was a little bit tedious, but it actually really, I felt as if I got a loop job. Yeah. Certainly some of the circuits I had never paid attention to before, those connections. So, any questions, comments?
I'm just sitting up about as straight as I ever have.
Good. And it's enjoyable? Good. That's good. Okay, so I guess we're...
It's about 2 hours.
Good.
You can go longer if you want.
Any other comments or experiences or questions?
How about the meridians that go through, you know?
How about them?
Yeah. Because when you were
How
doing
about those
this,
meridians?
there's that whole thing you're doing, but
Yes.
then I also, when I put attention on my those meridians, I was like, oh.
Yeah, actually that's a good point. I'm doing this actually is essentially doing what your legs are doing for the earth chakra. You're actually going up and you're sucking earth energy in, so that's a good point. I didn't have that worked onto that system, but that certainly is a very good point. So when you've got your hands up here, you might want to definitely visualize you're scooping heaven energy in right down through your arms and down into your heart, because that's very, and all the way down. This is actually, you're actually a tree this way, Good point, thank you. Yeah, this is definitely, again, this is only a game board, not gospel. It's just fun stuff to play with. Certainly not the whole thing. Anything else? Well then?
I just feel real calm and settled.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the attentions you put on those will definitely smooth out more of the emotional. This is all emotional stuff. All of this is all the emotional body and basically learning how to go with the flow. So it's it should help move some of that. Very good. Thank you. I really appreciate your being here. Thank you.
So at some point, we're going to get out of the emotional body and work with other.
Yeah, next month.
Oh, no!
There is no other body.
Remember, all the bodies contain everything, so we'll just be putting our attention on the mental body next month, and then our attention on the Buddhic body next month, et cetera, et cetera. But each one is a microcosm of the whole, contains all of them. That's why really trying to figure out where you are in this math is utterly impossible, because there's always smaller pieces within you and bigger pieces within you, and depending on your scale, you could be anywhere at all, which is really where you are. So you just say, okay, for now I'm going to pretend I'm here, and I'm going to pretend this is my game field, and within that I'll learn this. That's the best I can do with it. It's such a hologram that it's just a matter of whatever movies you want to, what you want to play on that field of the self.
It's funny because my experience is kind of opposite from a lot of people's. Probably like with this whole thing, it actually is really intense for me.
I'm not surprised.
I feel like lightheaded sometimes, when I'm doing that, which is, still good.
That's another point. Is you might want to continue on beyond that and actually complete the next Earth circuit. So that you are bringing it right back down.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
No, I mean it was obviously doing something good, but yeah.
Yeah. So just breathe.
Very point value.
Yeah. Point value. Exactly. Point and streams. Right. Okay. Good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. No, it's all you, it's all you. Which it is. I wouldn't be doing this otherwise. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Whereas the blue guy's magenta is opposite the magenta woman's blue, and it's because they're actually relating to each other. So both the blue and the magenta are cross quarters, and so their high holidays are exactly at squares around their wheel. Whereas the other months tend to cluster to make pentads, 5-day periods, or even week-long, 7.5-day high holidays. Those are clustered around the solstices and the equinoxes. You'll find 7 days, tripling up, 3 feast days in a row at those points. Those are the biggest clusters. So they cluster there, and then they start to thin out into 2 here and here, and then they thin out even further to 1, 1, 1, 1 as they get into this kind of cross-quarter point. And you can really feel that. These points are like, they have a lot of clout. We're very aware of the energies of equinoxes and solstices, whereas the cross-quarters are like, they're shifting, they're mutable. They're coming, they're apart from each other to kind of break things up. They're breaking up the old and they're bringing in the new. So they're transition phases, and then they start to cluster again here with a pentad, a 5-day, and then a week-long one here, and then another 5-day one here, and then
4 in a row, 2.5 days each, and then back to 2 and then 3. So it just goes, 1, 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, etc. as you're going around the circle. A lot of fun, and there's some really interesting patterns also as you start to interlock the same ones and the opposites. They make interlocking pentacles going through, with the pentacle points being on either side of the solstices and the equinoxes, leaving one in the middle. It's quite fascinating. I have that all shown on other pictures if you'd like to see it at some point.
Nice. I was wondering, like, the Magenta, you said she was called the victim?
In Carol Pearson's archetype book, I don't really care for that description.
I can understand because it's the opposite of the innocent.
Yes.
But
I don't see her that way. I was just drawing it in.
Yeah.
Basically, every archetype has a wounded side, and every archetype has a strong side.
Yeah.
And the wounded side of her is definitely the victim. She's the hurt one. She's the one who's raped. It's the physical. She's the one, basically, as the blue planter's shadow side is lust,
yes.
hers is basically being raped. And again, we both have both these energies inside.
One is the male.
So ones are inner male, inner electric, ones are inner magnetic. Essentially, it's a better way to put it. Leave out the whole male-female thing. But yeah, she moves from a sense of hurt, confusion, frustration, victimization into interconnecting network, creating the branches of a tree. Essentially, that's what she does. She spreads out and creates community. And so that's the natural. Did I miss something?
No, we're just laughing.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's really not. I mean, if you're going to call her the victim, you should call the red man, the pissed off son of a bitch,
right,
or
exactly. That's what I was thinking.
And same with the Smith. She calls the Smith the destroyer because he's the polar opposite of the creator. He is not the destroyer. He does destroy the creator, in his own time when the sun gets too full of pride and is actually moving down into the dark area. The sun's one of the last ones to go because he's the brightest archetype. So he goes in St. Nicholas's time and then gets reborn at Christmas time, December 25th.
And that's Aquarius. Is the Smith's time?
Yes, the Grail Smith.
Yes,
Metals.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if the Smith goes too out of balance, then we start.
He goes out of balance with guilt, and he gets knocked off up in summertime. Basically, he's the next to last one to go in summer, and then the crone is the very last to go. She goes right before the actual. Well, she gets killed here and then ascends here. Each one, just as you get born and you have an epiphany 2 weeks apart, you also get fatally wounded and then you have an ascent or descent 2 weeks apart within the wheel. But yeah, you could say that basically, whereas the Smith's fatal wounding and ascent is here, the crone's fatal wounding and ascent is here. Basically there and there. So she dies right before the solstice, gets reborn right after the solstice. As her opposite, the lunar sage is the last bright one to go. She dies right before the winter solstice and gets reborn right after the winter solstice, December 22nd and 3rd and 4th, right in there. And her mate is the yellow guy. He gets born December 24th and 5th. So that's why the rebirth of the solar creator.
Who gets reborn right after the winter solstice?
The lunar sage gets killed right before the or descends right before the solstice and is reborn immediately afterwards. That's because the crone, the indigo crystal woman, comes into her mate's house at that point. So that first 2.5 days is actually the indigo ray of the violet, indigo subray of the violet ray, and so she gives birth to her opposite, but it's not obvious yet. So what obvious is it's indigo, it's darkest of the dark, it's Saturnalia. That's actually, this whole time is Saturnalia. Saturn is right at the end of this, right before the equinox solstice.
In Jyotish, those are his two signs, and it's right at the point.
Very good.
Yes.
Yeah. So she gets born first, and then immediately afterwards the sun gets born.
My take on the victim thing felt like that when you were saying that the cube doesn't have tensegrity.
Yes. It does. We have to look very deep inside.
It's like the image or the idea without being totally manifest yet or something.
Yes.
And so that
there's
like that blueprint so it's kind of like in that sense it's not so like
concrete.
So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
The joke is she does have a tensegrity, but she doesn't know it. She can't find the tensegrity in terms of the eightness. It's not really there. You have to look at the deep structures inside that, so that requires more refinement.
Nice.
If you try to build, an actual physical structure on what you know as an eight, it's not going to work. But actually, in and of your own nature, yes, you are actually the logos. It's very clear. Yeah. Okay.
In Jungian stuff, it has the root chakra being mother victim.
Ah, okay. I would say it's definitely the mother. I would separate mother from victim.
Yeah, I mean, it's the both two sides.
Yeah.
That's what they have it be the, I don't know, the two sides of it.
Yeah, I actually work with 4 more archetypes beyond the 12. You can
Yeah.
say the 12 are the adityas, and then there's 4 more that kind of bring it extended into the cosmic cross. So that's the father, spirit, Purusha side, the mother, Prakriti aspect, and really her other side is humiliation. You know, because she's earth itself. She's actually humiliation, whereas the Smith's is guilt. It's the base chakra. That's almost humiliation, but not quite as bad. Humiliation is utter, and the good side, of course, is love. You know, humiliation, if you go through that, it's absolute coherence of love. Or if you're looking at it from Shiva's point of view, absolute dissolution and bliss, depending on which way you're going. But yeah, so that's if she actually has an underside. I'm almost not really happy about giving the ones outside the wheel shadow sides, because they don't really progress through the wheel. These are stationary, these two. They're kind of the black, the mother Prakriti itself, and the white. I mean, they do flood through in terms of creating the different states of consciousness, but in this system, they're essentially static. The two that are dynamic are the son, the son child coming out of the father down to the mother, and then the daughter coming out of the mother and ascending up to the father. So those are kind of representing the 2 cross points. But
You said all the 12 ones are associated with the Adityas.
yes,
Which one is Aryamon? Yeah.
Arya.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Aries, Arya.
Arya and Hamsa are the two pairs. They always pair. They pair as octaves. So that Mitra and Varuna, and then Bhaga and Daksha, and anyway, I forget them all now. But
Wow, this is so cool.
yeah, there's some good stuff on those guys in The Gods of India by what's his name there, Alain Danielou. He gives material on the Adityas that actually enabled me to plot them out on this wheel. So he actually showed how one was the nature of, this is kind of like covenants in this world, and this is covenants in the other world, and so on. He actually showed how that, and that made it very easy to kind of ascribe them to the planets using the octave system. This whole octave thing is quite fascinating. I didn't get into the whole thing about the Norse tree. We do that next time. Well, no, it is interesting. If you start at Middle Earth, the Norse tree has 9 points on it, and it was pretty clear which ones are which. If you start at Middle Earth, you can move both up and down from there. And this, again, is what we were speaking of in the first course, about how from that enlightenment as a baby soul, we have to expand into powers of 10 getting larger, and also contract into smaller and smaller powers of 10 at the same time going smaller. We have to do both simultaneously, or else we're still identifying with a point somewhere in heaven or hell, and we're going up and down, going up. Until we become both, and we embrace the paradox, then we can expand out and go smaller and smaller, bigger and bigger simultaneously until we find ourselves at both ends. And that's what the world tree, the Norse world tree, is also demonstrating. It starts with Middle Earth, Midgard, which is the human kingdom. And from there you go to the giants, which is like the ancestral realm, and the fire giants, which is the realm of the fire area, which is the beast realm. And so that actually shows that reflection across that midpoint, that basically the Mars energy and the Proserpina energies are octaves of each other, and the same with the Venus and the Neptune octaves. So from there we move up to the bright elves in the throat chakra, and that's the kind of the galactic realm. We could say we're up from the 10 to the 20th, 10 to 20 powers. We're going up very quickly. This is a logarithmic scale now, so you're starting with 10 to the 0 centimeters, and you're going up from there. And by the time you get up, 33 chakras, you're 10 to the 33 zeros out, both directions, going down, up and down. And we went into that in detail in the first one. So the bright elves, and then the dark elves in the sex chakra. And dark elves work with the vegetable kingdom. Bright elves work with the speech kingdom. This is the senses and speech again, how the speech informs the senses, which is why transcendence through mantra makes so much sense, or transcendence through music, either way. The senses are very cosmically bound to sound, So then from there we go up to the realm of the Devas, or the Vanir, they're called the Vanir in the Norse, and then down to the Nidabel, or the dwarves. And so they're not actually calling themselves polarity, but it's pretty obvious. And then the last one are the Aesir and Hell. So that's your basic, you're expanding out in both directions. Good stuff.
Thank you.